From my research into chronic wasting disease, I happened to find some articles about a mysterious, possibly prion-related disease found in Canada. Years ago, Dr. Marrero in New Brunswick, Canada noticed that there was a cluster of people that were all showing signs of some sort of unknown disease that was causing brain damage and death. Currently, the official stance from the Canadian government is that these people have suffered from known diseases. Given the choice between believing the government and believing what the doctors and patients say, I have no reason to believe the government, and all the reason to believe the doctors and patients. So I do believe that this is a new disease, and since no one has settled on a single name for it yet, I'm going to call it New Brunswick syndrome. This disease shows all the symptoms of Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, but it clearly isn't that. It may be another prion disease or some kind of neurotoxin, but we obviously don't know for sure yet. With an increasing number of cases and an apparent unwillingness for the Canadian government to acknowledge that this is a significant problem, we might not have answers for a while. What we do know is that the cases seem to have clusters in geographic areas, the Acadian Peninsula, the Restigouche area, and rural areas around Moncton going over to Sackville. We also know that it has a relatively fast progression, with some dying in weeks or months after showing symptoms. It also starts attacking the spinal cord first, then works its way up the brainstem before reaching the frontal lobes. I know what you're probably thinking. Is there a possible connection to chronic wasting disease? I think the answer is no, thankfully. New Brunswick appears to not have any significant amount of chronic wasting disease. If a potentially prion-related mystery disease was appearing in a province that has significant amounts of CWD, like Saskatchewan or Alberta, the answer may be different. Many Americans may not be able to identify New Brunswick on this map, so I labeled it with an NB. It's right next to Maine. Two of the leading theories about the cause of New Brunswick syndrome are either exposure to glyphosate or exposure to toxic BMAA from blue-green algae. The majority of over 200 patients sickened from New Brunswick syndrome had very high amounts of glyphosate in their urine. A significant amount of them also had very high levels of pesticides in their bodies as well. If pesticides and herbicides were getting into the drinking water supply, for example, we would expect a significant amount of small pets getting sick and dying. Small pets would be more susceptible to poisoning because of their size and because they don't drink bottled water. However, we don't see a significant amount of pets dying like this, so I would say that the drinking water is probably not what's being contaminated. 3 dogs did die after exposure to toxic algae in the St. John River in New Brunswick. If algae was in fact the only problem, we would see many more animals than humans getting sick. I say this because of the CDC statistics that show animals are significantly more affected than humans by toxic algae blooms. The next obvious question is, how could so many people be unknowingly poisoned by both pesticides and herbicides? The answer may be very simple. A lot of the patients that were surveyed reported that they had eaten wild berries like blueberries and strawberries. Thin-skinned fruit like strawberries are particularly susceptible to harming humans after exposure to pesticides and herbicides. So this could be a case of people eating wild strawberries on public land after being sprayed with herbicide, and then folks later get sick and die because of it. Where I live in America, it's very common for people to eat edible plants like asparagus and rhubarb that grow in road ditches. Of course, the ditches and plants are sprayed with what I can only assume is herbicide by the county every now and then. Finally, I doubt that the Canadian government is going to try to do any more investigation into this or try to solve this problem until they face significant political pressure from the public. I don't think this health issue is being taken seriously enough, and I believe the government wants it to be swept aside and forgotten. I'm Info Gunvault. I'm known for my articulate, detailed, and analytical approach. I dispel myths, talk about how you can avoid being attacked by angry bears, and I cover many gun-related topics. I've done a great deal of research for my videos, which is why I have hundreds of pages of notes and quotations. I'd like you to come along for the ride with me in my relentless pursuit of the truth.